The last assignment, of course, is the 5-image mini portfolio posted on Instagram on a theme of some sort. Now, the close-up abstract is an exercise to get you to find out just how close your camera, whether it's a cell phone or other, can get to a surface or an object before it can no longer focus on it. And that varies from camera to camera, lens to lens. It just so happens that cell phones are really good at close focusing. My iPhone can get within 4 to 6 inches of a surface or an object and still focus. However, in fact, it's actually better than my Fuji mirrorless, which is my favorite camera, which can focus pretty close, but not any closer than about 8 inches. And a standard DSLR like Canon, Nikon, Sony, what have you, with the standard what we call kit lens, which is usually a moderate zoom lens on there, something like 40 to 70 millimeter, usually can't focus any closer than about a foot, foot and a half. So an off-the-shelf DSLR, even though you're paying a lot of money for it, is not set up with the standard lens that comes with it to actually do close-up work. However, the advantage of a DSLR is that you can remove the lens and put a different lens on. And I have my old Nikon D300, which is terribly outdated, but still takes fairly good pictures. And I do have a close-up lens I bought secondhand online. And with that, I can get into a bug's face, although that's a bit of an exaggeration. So with cell phone, actually, if you have a DSLR, probably your cell phone is better for this assignment than the DSLR. You don't absolutely have to get as close as you possibly can. You're allowed to back away from what you're shooting a foot or two if in the viewfinder it actually makes a more pleasing picture. But the idea of getting that close is that in many cases, the viewer cannot recognize exactly what you're photographing. It's got form, it's got line, it's got texture, shadows, but you're so close, they can't really place it. And so now they look at it just as an abstract view of something, and they judge it on how visually powerful it is according to how it's been photographed. Now, I must say, when you get that close and you're actually shooting like I am today, which is the outside wall of, my famous coffee shop here, you don't want to be doing this when the light is hitting the object directly on. And now, of course, that depends on the angle of the surface or the object. You want shadows. That brings out texture and three-dimensionality. So it's best for most surfaces, especially since a lot of people tend to shoot vertical surfaces, walls made of brick or stone, that sort of stuff tends to be vertical. You sort of need to do this early in the morning, if you can get up, if you're a morning person, or late in the afternoon when the sun is raking across the surface. That throws the longer shadows and shows off texture much better. Whereas, you know, high noon or whatever, you have short shadows, it doesn't show texture quite as much. In any case, first thing I'm going to try to do here is actually take my my iPad out and actually shoot something. Well, under these circumstances, I'll let you be the judge as to how interesting it is. I'm going mobile right now. The drive-through is quite busy here, and we'll be on live video in just a second. Getting out of the car, got my keys. Very windy out here in St. Lazare, and it's still bloody cold. It was snowing this morning. The winter that never ends. All right, you probably hear the wind. And oh, here's a subject that might work pretty well. So allow me to start the video. I'll freeze myself real quick. Let's wrong camera. Yeah, here's the outside wall. Miserable conditions today. This. If it makes you seasick, I'm sorry. Okay, so we have a downspout here. The corner edge. You can see that the sun is coming in from the right. It is casting shadows. What I would call a stable position, and see how close I can get. Maybe close. Of course, the Right, now look what I'm doing. I'm coming in close. I'm only taking part of the downspout. There's one, and there's always possibility of cropping. Right now, I'm only going to take part of it. I like that shiny bolt. I want to keep that there, and I see the shadow line. Now, I'm trying to obey the rule of thirds here to place the bolt and the shadow in the upper third. Click. There we go. Although I think I lost focus on the downspout. That's closer to the
I didn't see anything.
There we go. That's just.
Sir?
Yeah, go ahead.
We literally can't see anything.
But you can't. Let me check.
Because I think you, yeah.
Yeah, you should have spoken up earlier. It's here. Oh, it's because I didn't. Yeah, sorry. I'm going to share the screen. Now you'll see something. Hey, look, I'm a Zoom newbie. Okay. Now do you see something?
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll see the results later on. I'm at the downspout here, and I'm really close, like I'm 1.5 feet. Actually, I'm 1 foot away from the downspout. Now, I took one shot where I recognize it as a downspout. There's a nice strong shadow line here. So I'm going to try Let me walk around, as long as I don't lose my Wi-Fi signal. What else is? Well, if you get seriously close enough, you don't get a partial of the car, and you'll see my tires need to be changed. They got no thread, or tread, I should say. And I'm playing with the deep shadow here, which is an arc. And let me see. Let's try that. Okay, it's not a true. You can recognize right away, but you only see the result. So it is, in fact, a form and line shadow steady. I want to have all of the wheelchair access there because I want them to think for a little bit. I'm going to crop out the parking lot on the right-hand side. All right, come on. All right, I'm freezing my fingers up. But if I put gloves on, I can't manipulate the keyboard. All right, let's go inside, see what I've got. I'm sure you can do better than the teacher. And stop share. There we go. Let's take a look at what we got in a second, and then I'll show you some editing tricks. Hopefully on Pixlr. Ooh. Where's my hot chocolate? Up inside of the car, which is dirty, filthy. You got to see my passenger seat; it's full of junk. All right. Okay, I'm going to go back to sharing video or sharing my screen. And then we're going to try to do a little editing to finish this up. Okay. So I still got a few people here. Now, what I'm going to do is, I'm good. This is Lightroom. Now, this happens to be my favorite editor, and we don't use it in class because it's, you know, I mean, it's pretty in-depth. And you probably don't have it at home. And I don't believe that Lightroom is on every station in the college, only some classrooms. So that's the main reason we don't use it. It's my favorite editing program, though, that you can rent monthly. Actually, I believe there's still a version you can buy and download, and it's basically yours. You don't have to pay a monthly fee to Adobe. But the controls that I'm going to use here, okay, is, okay, recently added. Oh, here we go. All right, up here on top, you should be seeing the shots I just got through taking in a bit of a thumbnail size. Now I have to bring those in, I believe, but I'm not sure. So I'm just going to take a look at these thumbnails. And let's see. No, I don't like that. No, I don't like the car one. Kind of like the downspout ones. All right. So of the downspout, which ones do you prefer? Okay, so let's do this. Oh, okay, so it's right here. Okay, so you'll see on screen here the shot. You'll also see the histogram in the upper left-hand corner. Now, in Lightroom, it's automatic. You can turn it off if you want, but I live by histograms to tell me about the photograph. Now, in Pixlr, and in many other editors, by default, it's turned on. In Pixlr, it's not. I really wish it was. And the only place that I've found in Pixlr that you can get to a histogram on screen is the levels command. You go to the top menu, and I'm trying to remember where that is, which of those drop-down menus has the command levels in there. And I think I showed the class that. That does give you a basic histogram. Now, this histogram is telling me that exposure overall is pretty good. I don't have a ton of pixels at the black or dark end to the left, and it's not overexposed because I don't have any pixels on the right-hand side edge, which is pure white. But they are spread out in between. So overall, and actually just looking at the image, it looks pretty good. I'm going to modify it just a little bit to make the texture, and we can see the texture on the wood, But first thing I'm going to do is crop. Now, you don't absolutely have to do this just for Instagram, but Instagram prefers a 5:4 ratio for cropping. So like if you've been following my my personal Instagram feed at Northern Bob, which is not associated with a class, most of my work, I do a crop for Instagram to bring it up there, but of course I keep the original because sometimes I don't want to crop quite to a 4:5. Here in Lightroom, on the control or tool panels on the right-hand side, you see right there is crop. And you'll see right away aspects is 3:4, not quite the same thing as 4:5. That is the crop that Instagram prefers. So I go with it. Now you'll notice that I've got a little space on the left and on the right hand side. You would too, and even in Pixlr, because it's not 2:3. Now in some cases, it makes a big difference if you move the image to the right or you move it to the left. In this case, there is only one problem with just sliding it over here. I don't like the fact that the second silver bolt is right on the edge there, and so is the crease line where the aluminum is wrapped around. I would prefer to give it a little more space. Now, there's nothing saying that now that you've set it to 4:5, you can't actually crop in further. I could. There's, you know, this has got a high resolution camera on here. There are a lot of pixels that I could actually get rid of and still have a high enough, sharp enough image. I can grab a corner, and you can do this with Pixlr too. And notice that as soon as I do grab one of those control points, boom. Right now we're locked at 4:5 or 5:4. So that no matter how much I change it, it keeps the ratio. You'll see, it doesn't matter. I can't make it skinnier or taller. So what do I want? Well, I do want some of the cement. And I'm going to move the crop down. If I just tap somewhere in the center and then go like this, slide my finger up, it gets something like this. Now that's just one crop. There could be a more effective one, but we're not going to get into it. If I like it, in my case on this program, you just say done. It's done. I mean, there's still plenty. We're not seeing the jaggies. We haven't thrown out so many pixels. So now what I want to do is adjust the tonality just a bit to make it a little bit more apparent, especially in the concrete down here, the texture. So I look at the histogram, and I may have some pixels that are pure black right in the deepest areas, but not very many. And I have no pure whites. You see the histogram, there's a gap on the right-hand side. Now, I'm one who believes that there's almost always should be black somewhere in the image, and sometimes more than what I got, but not always white. So I'm just going to play with the blacks, and the way I get to it is through light over here. You see all the controls here. I'm just going to grab the black slider on the bottom and move it over. Now, if I move it over a lot, look at that. Not only does the color intensify, because it actually does shift the other colors, just not as much. You see the big peak on the left-hand side grow because more and more pixels are being told to go to black. That's too much. So I adjust it. I look at the screen because the iPad screen's pretty accurate. And so I do make visual adjustments based on what I see on screen on this, but the ultimate is somewhere around there, okay? I haven't hidden too much detail in black. Now, do I want whites? No, probably not, but let's see what happens if I stretch the histogram on the right-hand side by grabbing the white slider. Move it over, see? Now notice I got a peak on the right-hand side, That's a ton of pixels that have gone pure white. Well, yeah, that's cement down below. That is definitely too far. So adjust to taste. And I tend to not quite get a pure white, but close to it, somewhere around there. That's okay. Now, highlights and shadows adjust things that are not pure white or pure black. Now, I find that the cement is a little bright to see the texture, so I may grab highlight slider, which should affect, see how the texture is coming in as I move that? Now, that is a little too far for the cement, and we're a ways away from pure white, so I'm going to pull it to about there. See, there's a little bit of yellow cast on that cement. Now, cement often is not neutral. Actually, it's actually not cement. Oh, yes, it is. It's cement tablet or tile type material. We're awfully close on the color just looking at it. But one could try to adjust the color and see what happens overall. If I think the cement's a little too yellow, there might be a little bit of yellow overall, I can add its opposite color into the shot, which is blue. And so I go to color down here. You'll see the controls, much you would see in Pixlr. Temperature, tint, vibrance, and saturation. Well, temperature is a blue-yellow slider. Tint is green, magenta. I think there's too much yellow. I'm gonna grab the slider and move it over toward the blue side. See how everything cools down. And of course, I can go too far. Or I can go to an interpretation of the scene. But I don't think that blue looks good on the scene. All right, now I have gotten rid of a little bit of the yellow. It's on -9, maybe -11. You kind of have to play around. Personally, because I've seen thousands of photographs, I think there might be a little green in here, although you probably won't notice it. I'm going to move the tint slider to add a little magenta. Yeah, I think that's correct. +9 there. Again, if I go too far, everything goes magenta or green. But trying to judge it on the cement, that's pretty neutral. Now, in most color photographs, sometimes you can get to a neutral overall color with a little cheap trick. Well, it's not a cheap trick. I use it all the time. Well, not all the time. Somewhere around the controls, and I think Pixlr has this too, you have an eyedropper. Now, on Lightroom here, just across from the word custom, i.e. custom color, is that eyedropper. And that allows you to pick an area that, number one, should be neutral in tone, and just click on that area. And the program will attempt to make it neutral. It'll analyze the color underneath where you clicked or tapped with your finger. And if it sees any color other than grays, it will attempt to neutralize it. So I'm going to pick up my eyedropper here. And in this particular program, you get to see a target reticule with a check mark on it. And I'm just going to grab it and slide it over here. Whoa, did you see that? Yeah. Move it around a bit. Nah, that doesn't work. This is actually not working well. Now, if I try to put it on the red, it's going to try to neutralize the red. This should be interesting. I would suspect that I'm going to get a very cold, almost cyan look. Yep. Well, it's interesting, but it's not what I want. Now, if you don't want that, just don't hit, in this particular case, just don't hit the checkbox. Sometimes I'll do that, and it actually gets me closer to the right color, but I know it's not perfect. I'll still accept it. It's done most of the hard work for me in lifting. And then I go over to temperature and tint. But in this case, it's just thrown me too far off. So I'm just going to click the eyedropper again, but not the OK. And we're back to that. And I can cool it down a little bit more, just a little bit more. And we're about right here. All right, is there anything else? Well, one can always, almost always do a little sharpening of an image coming out of camera, unless you have your camera controls set up to a very strong sharpening. Stuff comes out of the camera usually just a little bit soft. And this may not look soft, but it actually could stand maybe just a little bit more sharpening. But before we do that, I'm going to show you what I do to every shot I make. Vignette. Okay. Now, it's in every program somewhere. It's in Pixlr. Vignette simply means adding a bit more density to the corners and edges of the image to drive the viewer's attention in toward where you want them to focus. So in Lightroom, it's under Effects, Vignette near the bottom here. And one way is to go this way, and you see sort of the old portrait style white vignette. I don't use that almost never. You go in the opposite direction. And again, if you go too far, you sort of get the keyhole effect. I want to make it subtle, somewhere around there. Now, initially, when you vignette, you can see it easily because you just made the change. If you give it about 5-10 seconds, your mental eye absorbs the slight change. You no longer see the vignette in the corners and to the side. And I do that to almost every one of my images. Now, let's see. As I touch the screen, yeah, here is the original shot that came from the camera before. That's straight out of the camera. Here we are now. And actually, having done that, I feel that I've taken too much yellow out of this. I'm going to go back to color and add a little more yellow. It's too cold for me. Up, whoa, whoa. Yeah, but there, a little magenta. I'm very picky when I'm trying to get my colors going, unless it's completely off the wall. Okay, so I was in Effects. We did a vignette. I'm not going to discuss the top 3 controls, texture, clarity, and dehaze. I'm not sure that they're there in Pixlr, which I don't use except for class, because you can get to it online anytime you want. But I will go to detail. Sharpening, noise reduction, though I don't think this needs noise. You may only have a simple control for sharpening, and I'm going to rack it all the way across. Okay, that's maximum sharpness here in Lightroom. Now that doesn't look like it's got problems, but if we zoom in, look at that weird pattern, and almost like an interference pattern on screen. That is over sharpening. Some images, it comes out obvious. You don't even have to zoom in that far. So we've gone way too far. Bring it back, maybe about there. Now the pattern is still a bit there, but it's being subdued. And now I'm really zoomed in, almost to the point of seeing the pixels that make up the image. This doesn't need much sharpening. That's not too bad. Let's see how close I can actually zoom in. Right about there. Yeah, that's monstrously close. Double tap, we're back out. Probably there, just a little less sharpening. I think it'll be okay. Noise. What's noise? Well, noise is introduced by your camera sensor. It most often shows up in shadows. That's why I'm zooming in over here. I don't really see much. You also have noise suppression in Pixlr too somewhere. There are two types of noise, like I said in class. There's luminance noise and color noise. Now, luminance noise really just looks like really fine-grained sand that's been scattered somewhat evenly across the picture. Some people really like the effect. If you've picked up some of that noise from your sensor, especially under low light conditions, you can come down to noise reduction and start moving that. But the more you reduce noise, the softer the image is going to end up getting. So there's a trade-off there. I don't really think we need it. Now, I can't even show you on this color noise because I don't believe I have any. Color noise is, again, it's a random dot pattern, but they're literally little dots of color. There might be a little here, but I really don't see. If you do see that, sort of like colored confetti, just slide color noise reduction until, and I don't really have any here, until it's just eliminated. That's the easiest one to get rid of without damaging your image by making it too soft. Regular luminance noise up here tends to really soften it onto certain pictures, but it's not a problem with this shot. So, okay, we've done some basic editing on here. We have improved it. Let's see if this key press. Yeah, that's before. That's after. Now, if you flick back and forth like this, on Lightroom, it's the Y key on your keyboard, but with Pixlr, at the very least, you have history. On the right-hand side, you have a panel called History. You can go to Open Image, which is the first thing you ever did. And that's everything in the image before you did any editing. And then you can go to the last history step, which is the last thing you did. And that'll give you the before and after. Here we can see the vignetting. Notice that? Your eyes pick it up in the corners. But after a few seconds, you don't notice it anymore. And that's the way I like my vignetting. So that's basic editing. And what do we have here? Well, it is recognizable to most people. But the strongest part of it is literally the lines cast by the shadows. We've got 3 horizontal ones in the downspout. We've got 2 major ones in the wooden boards behind the downspout. So again, it ends up being more abstract, although in this particular case, we could actually tell exactly what it was. Some of the stuff that you will shoot, if you're close enough, people won't know what exactly it is. They'll have an idea, and they may be wrong. And that's fine. Or you can do it like this. This is still good. This is a close-up shot. And it's starting to get into an abstract. But that would do just fine for the one shot that you need. Now, I did other shots. I found that they needed a lot more work to come in. Here's this one. Now, this one really needs to be cropped as a vertical. The parking lot ahead of my car, that's all distraction. Really shouldn't even be there. To get the shot, I probably should have turned the iPad vertical. So just very quickly, I'm going to rotate. No, I can't do that. I'm going to do this. Okay, hang on. Aspect is 3:4. I still want it 4:5. I'll bring it in. Okay, so that just eliminates everything in the parking lot. And I kind of like this crack. Can I? Oh, yeah, I like that. I like this a lot. Although it wouldn't be my, okay. Now I'm trying to place, notice the rule of third grids. Every time I touch in crop mode, and I'm trying to place, oh, I can't do that. Okay, so you don't have to place the intersection of lines on interesting points. It's nice if you can, they pick up added visual power, but now I'm including the parking lot, and I definitely don't want that. You only have to be close. And I think here is where I would be. So I've excluded most of the symbol, the handicap symbol. There might be enough for some sharp people to figure it out right away. I think I'll work with this. Done. There's my shot. All right, now my histogram shows me that my tonal range is a bit short again, and that's fine because we can always change it. We're almost to blacks, but possibly not quite on the left-hand side, and we're not near whites. Most of the tones line up in the middle. Yeah, makes sense. Gray, wood, painted red, but the tonality is all very similar to sort of mid-tones. So I can stretch this very quickly, add a little contrast. Contrast control stretches both ends. Yeah, you got to be careful here. I don't want to go too far. And I think I got my blacks now. I'm just a little short on whites, but that's where I tend to like things. That looks pretty good. So down and dirty. Color. It's pretty close. Is there any neutral area? No. Even the brushed aluminum door button has got some colors reflected in it. But overall looks pretty good. So sometimes I play, oops, too far. Sometimes I play with it just to see. Blue, yellow, somewhere around there. How about magenta? Oh, magenta, it could actually add a little magenta. Not that much. Maybe about there. That looks pretty good. We got some interesting texture patterns. We got a crack. I'm going to do my vignetting right now. Again, it's subtle. Most of the time when I vignette, I don't get dramatic, but sometimes I do. Just not on this one. I don't want people to know it's vignetted. I just want to subtly steer them in toward the knot hole, because the knot hole and the button are repeating patterns. They're both circles. Okay, so we've got a diagonal visual movement here. And in fact, the crack, you know, comes down and avoids the knot hole. So I love that. Heck, I might even use this shot again or come back and shoot it again. Okay, I've done my vignetting. Now I am going to move texture. The texture slider here, which I don't think you have in Pixlr, obviously increases texture. Now I can go this far. That's too harsh. That's 100 on texture. Just want to, come on, slide back. I just want to bump it up a little bit. Yeah, like about there. That looks pretty good. Leave that alone for effects. Detail, always can use a wee bit of sharpening. I'll play with a couple. Noise, I found out that under these conditions, I'm not really picking up much in the way of noise. I don't see that luminosity grain pattern unless I really zoom in. Let's go here. No. Oh, might be a little. No, it's fine. It's pretty clean. I'm just going to leave it. That's where we're at so far. And then I'll leave the other controls alone. My histogram is looking pretty good. I think that I might very well be done with this shot on basic editing. Now, there are some things here that I personally would go for and eliminate. For instance, lower left corner on the red wood. You see about an inch in, or, well, depends on the screen you're at. There's a white streak. Could be a fleck of paint, doesn't know. I find it's distracting, it's near the edge. I do have controls to touch it up. But, okay, where are we? The Band-Aid, yes. Band-Aid gives me touch up. Now, this doesn't work the same way in Pixlr, but I've got a fixer-upper brush and feather, about that much. Okay, so basically I can come over to the little white spot once I've adjusted the brush. Just tap on it and watch what happens. The bold circle is where the white spot was. The second circle, and this is what I love about Lightroom, this is one of many controls that I really am in love with. It's just, you know, a spot remover, although it can do more than spots. It's picking up the red, the texture and everything from the left circle and blending it in on the right. And if you take a look, the spot is gone. Now, that's probably all I would do. I would check the edges of my image and say, are there any others that are really, not really, there's some on the right-hand side on the wood. I could do that just because we're demonstrating. Over here, but this is getting really picky. This is not something that I would go that far on, but I'm just showing you the power of Lightroom. There you go. Now, if you don't like what Lightroom just chose, like near the button there, you can grab the lighter circle and move it around and notice what's happening just above it. That's how it blended in. That's no good. You want to go to an area that is roughly close in color, density, and texture if you can find it. And then when you see that, release it. Now remember, you're pretty well zoomed in. I am, or am I? No, I'm pretty close to normal viewing, so I have to be very, very careful. Sometimes you're very zoomed in. There you go. I like that. I picked up a slight crease in the wood, and it tends to match. And I can go done, and you really can't tell where I've done the retouching. So that's a nice advantage over here. And I'll touch it once here. We'll just see the full screen, and that's not bad. That would work fine for the assignment. That'd be nice. We really have a couple of interesting things to keep our attention going on this. We have real strong texture on the wood. That's the grayish yellow over here. The wood is contributing several different objects, not only the texture, but the vertical crack. Somebody's tried to fix where a small knot hole probably fell out. And we see that because it has its own texture and actually a slight greenish color. And then we have the knot hole here, the circular shape of which mimics the button over here on the left. And if you draw a line between, there's an invisible, if you will, hinted diagonal going on. I like the contrast of the red against the fairly neutral painted wood. I like the two circles, although the button is implied because we don't see the entire button, but seeing what we do, it's obvious that it's most likely, yeah, iPhone SE. It's most likely a circle, so we just assume that it is. Looking at it right now, I might actually go back and do a little more vignetting. Once I've seen it full screen and I've been doing some editing for a while, one of the things I suggest is when you get to the stage where I'm at right now, you put it away for a day instead of editing at the last second. I have been accused of and done editing, and then immediately posting it. And then a couple days later, I go take a look at that image, go, oh, geez, why didn't I see that? I should have done that. You're too close to the trees to see the forest. Literally, your eyes get tired. You overlook things. Like that vignetting probably should be a little stronger. It's -7. I'm going to bring it in a little bit more. -22. Well, that's a little, yeah, that's okay. Let my eyes adjust a little bit. And I think that'll be okay. Sometimes vignetting can actually come in and look like it's natural. Like on the wood here on the right-hand side, we still see the darkening in the corners. This could be a natural shadow. It's not. It could be a darkening of the wood if you don't carry it too far. Now, if I carried it too far, well, what I would do at this point is just close up shop, wait till this evening. My eyes are refreshed. I'm away from editing for a while, and I'll open it back up and I'll go, okay, Yeah, it looks a little bit heavy, so I'm going to go back. 30, from 7 to 30, no, not good. Bring it there to 16, which is still an increase of where I was. There you go. There's the image. So most of everything that I've done here to this, you can find on other editors other than Lightroom. You have to pay for Lightroom. There are other free photo editors too that I've mentioned in class. It's just that I'm so comfortable. Lightroom is my life and blood. I do use other software, but this is my first go-to here. Okay. Stop broadcasting screen with Zoom. Yeah, we're running out of time. And we go back to Zoom, and I still got a few people, so I haven't talked you to death. That's always good. Are there any questions at this point on my approach to this assignment? No. Okay. Be on the lookout. I'm going to try to, let me just make sure I got this here. Stop recording. Okay. I'm going to, oh, hands up. Somebody knows the hands up. Okay. Go ahead, Laura.
People, just to tell you that people wrote in the chat. So if you want to check that out, because there's a lot of messages.
Yes, I have to catch up on that. Thanks for reminding me. I will. I'll get back to any messages that still make sense. As I said before, what's going to be posted this week, and maybe even tonight if I get a chance. First, the revised course outline. There won't be a lot revised, still the same assignments, but some biggies there.
Okay.
Like, so download that. There'll also be, that won't happen tonight, but it will happen this week, that I'm going to take this recording in the cloud. Stop. Do I want to stop?